Welcome to the demonstration for Enterprise Vault Operations Manager. This demonstration reinforces the concepts covered in Lesson 16 of the Enterprise Vault 10 for Exchange Administration course. In this demonstration, we will examine a tool that administrators can use to monitor Enterprise Vault systems. In particular, we will install and configure the Enterprise Vault Operations Manager, or EVOM, which provides dashboard-style monitoring. In this demonstration, we will install the Enterprise Vault Operations Manager and use it to monitor Enterprise Vault systems using the various dashboards. The Enterprise Vault Operations Manager installation installs just the monitoring web application and only needs to be installed on one Enterprise Vault server per site. All Enterprise Vault servers automatically install and run the monitoring agents, which write status information into the monitoring database. The monitoring web application is the web-based interface used to display that information. One of the first things that we need to do in this demonstration is verify that we've created a user for the EVOM environment. So we're on the domain controller, and we have the Active Directory Users and Computers Microsoft Management Console open, and under our Users section we have created a user called EVOM user, or EVOM user, and that just needs to be a regular user. It doesn't need any special permissions. You do want to make sure that the password doesn't expire. Now that we've verified that that user exists, we'll go ahead and minimize the Active Directory Users and Computers. And what we want to do is we want to switch over to our Enterprise Vault server. So we'll go ahead and do that. And now we're logged on to our Enterprise Vault server as our power user that we've been using in previous demonstrations. And server 2 is the name of our Enterprise Vault server. Now what we need to do is, since we're going to be installing the Enterprise Vault software, specifically the Enterprise Vault Operations Manager, we need to be logged in as the Vault Service account to do the software installation. So we're going to go ahead and log off in Kapor. So we'll click our Start button, click our Log Off. And then once the Kapor is logged off, we can log back on as the Vault Service account. And since we're using virtual machines for our demonstration, I'll come up here and send the Control-Alt-Delete from the virtual machine environment. Once I've sent the Control-Alt-Delete, I can switch users and select Other User. Then we specify the name of the Vault Service account, which is EV_service. Type in the password for the account. And then click our blue arrow here to log in. And now we're logged in as the Vault Service account and we're ready to install the software. So what we'll do is we'll open up Windows Explorer and we'll navigate to our installation media, which happens to be on our CD drive on this particular machine. So we go and select our CD drive, and then it will be in the Symantec Enterprise Vault 10 folder. Then it will be in the server folder. And then we will run the setup application. So the setup application starts up. We get a moment or so where we're loading some initial components. Then we're preparing for the installation. And then we get our Welcome to the Enterprise Vault Installation wizard starting up. So on this first screen, we'll go ahead and click Next. And then we have our license agreement, so we would read through our license agreement and select Yes. And at this point, we could run the deployment scanner as part of the installation process, but we've already done that when we installed Enterprise Vault on this particular server, so we don't need to run the deployment scanner again. So we'll go ahead and unmark that. And then we'll select Next again. And what we want to do is we want to add in the Operations Manager. So we'll place a mark in front of the Operations Manager. Select Next. And again, it checks our configuration. And then it generates a report that we can look at to make sure we've got all our prerequisites met for the Enterprise Vault Operations Manager. So we'll leave this checked and just take a quick look at that report. So I'll click Next. And it opens up the report for the requirement scanner. There are a couple warnings about the message queue, IP6, memory, Lotus nodes. None of those are going to impact the installation of the Enterprise Vault Operations Manager. And for example, the memory, we're getting that because we're doing it in a demonstration environment and not a production environment. So therefore, we could use more memory. So we'll go ahead and close this out. There's nothing here that should prevent the Enterprise Vault Operations Manager from working correctly. Then our next dialog box is asking us for our license files. And we've already installed the Enterprise Vault, so we have a valid license already there. So we just have it selected and click Next. And it tells us it's going to have to stop a bunch of different services in order to do the installation. So we'll go ahead and click Next for that. And again, for the demonstration here, we've just kind of time compressed it so we don't watch it stop all the services, but here's an example of stopping one of the services. Then it gets us to the point, once it's stopped all those services that it needs to stop, it's now ready to do the actual installation, and it shows you some additional components that will be installed above and beyond the Enterprise Vault Operations Manager components. So we're ready to do the installation, so we go ahead and click our install. And you can see that we do have the progress bar here that's giving us the status of the installation. And there will be some pop-ups that come up periodically to tell us that it's installing different configuration items. And then finally, we will get to the end of the installation process, and it will give us an option to show the configuration information. And this will open up the Enterprise Vault Help System to show you the information about configuring the Enterprise Vault Operations Manager. We don't need to go look at that because we're going to do it. So just go ahead and uncheck that. And then we can click Finish. And now we're ready to verify that all the services that were stopped as part of the installation process are in fact still or have been restarted. So we'll go ahead and we'll use the Server Manager to do that. Before we do the Server Manager, we'll go ahead and minimize our Windows Explorer there. And then we'll start up our Server Manager. There we go. And I've organized all the services based upon being automatic startup. So you can see that everything that has an automatic startup has started up again, including the Enterprise Vault services from the admin service to the task controller service. We'll go ahead and scroll down because there was a couple of web services that were also being stopped by the installation. So we can scroll down and see that those web services have started back up again. And the only thing that hasn't started back up that is set up to be automatically started up is the software protection. And again, we don't need that at this point for the Enterprise Vault Operations Manager. So we can go ahead and continue on with our configuration. So we'll go ahead and minimize the Server Manager. And now we're ready to run the Enterprise Vault Operations Manager configuration wizard. So we'll do that from our Start menu. You can see it's got the Operations Manager Web App Configuration option, so we'll select that. And we need to be able to specify the domain that we're using this to monitor, so that in our particular demonstration, our domain name is example. The user that we created for the Enterprise Vault Operations Manager, EVOM user, and then that user's password, so we type that in. Then we can go ahead and click our Configure button. And as the configuration goes along, we'll be getting updates across the bottom of the dialog box here. And then also there'll be pop-ups. So here it's telling us the additional users' privileges that will be granted and that the groups that they're being added to and so on. So we go ahead and click OK here. And again, we'll get continued updates across the bottom of the dialog box as to the progress. And then it gets to the end and we've successfully installed, we've correctly configured it. We've already installed it. So we'll go ahead and click OK. And now that we've got the Enterprise Vault Operations Manager software installed and it is configured, the web app has been configured, we can now switch back to our power user and not stay logged in as our service account. So we'll go ahead and log off our service account here. So I click my Start and click the Log Off. And again, we'll come up here to the virtual machine software and send the Control-Alt-Delete command. And then we'll switch users. And then we can select Other User. And we'll go back to our power user, which was in Kapoor. And type in the password for in Kapoor. Then we can click our arrow to log in. And now we're back on the Enterprise Vault server, but we're logged in as our power user. So now we want to start up the Enterprise Vault Operations Manager web interface so that we can see what is being monitored. So we'll go ahead and click our Start button here, and we'll select our Internet Explorer. When the Internet Explorer opens up, we need to type in the web address to the Enterprise Vault Operations Manager web application, and that address is going to be http:// and then the server name. In this case here it's server 2, and it'll be monitoring web app. So we go ahead and hit enter. We can see that it is connecting, and then it finally does open up. The first thing that it opens up to is for monitoring of the Enterprise Vault monitoring. We'll see here that it also does Exchange server monitoring, and there are configuration settings. We'll be looking at each of those here in a moment. For our Enterprise Vault monitoring, we can see that it comes back and tells us the servers that are running Exchange tasks and their status, and we'll look at the legend for the status here in just a moment. We can see the servers running the indexing service, they're running the storage service, running the shopping service. And of course, in our particular environment for the demonstration, we've only got one server that's running those different services. But if I had multiple servers that were doing that, the Enterprise Vault Operations Manager agent on those additional Enterprise Vault servers would be reporting back to the Enterprise Vault Operations Manager database with their status, and it would show up here in the report. If I scroll down, we can see that we do have the shopping service updates, and here's our legend. We have normal is going to be the green check marks, warning is going to be the little triangle with the exclamation mark, and then our critical is the circle with the X in it. So it looks like everything seems to be running all right for our summary of our Enterprise Vault monitoring. But we'll come over here and we'll click on our Details tab. And on our Details tab, you can see that it gives you much more information, and you can select the server that you want to look at. And again, we've only got the one server to look at. But you select the individual server and get the details about the status of the different services. Here we've got the different tasks as well. If I scroll down, it gets down into the performance counters. And we're not going to go through and talk about each and every one of these. You can go into the Enterprise Vault Help System or the Installing and Configuring Guide, the Administrator's Guide. They all have more information about the individual items that are available for monitoring. And typically the specifications when we get into the configuration will be fine with the default settings, but you can change those if there is a certain need to do that, typically getting some support from the Enterprise Vault support environment to recommend making a change. But most of the time the values for the default are all available or typically fine for use. So we've got our performance counters for logical disk, performance counters for memory, and then a performance counter for the processor usage here. You can see in my example here I've got a warning about the processor time and that it's starting to get a little bit high at a particular point, so I may want to look at what's running on that particular Enterprise Vault server and see if I need to beef it up or offload some additional services to different servers so that I don't have that warning for the performance counter for the processor. So let's go ahead and scroll back up to the top again. And now we'll switch over to see what is happening for the Exchange server monitoring. So we'll select Exchange server monitoring. And you can see here that we're monitoring the journal mailbox on the journaling server, which is the Enterprise Vault server, server 2. And it gives you different things such as the inbox total, was there distribution list expansion problems, were there external filters, such as if you had compliance accelerator filters in there, are there problems with those filters? Then if we scroll over, days since the last backup, if there's an invalid journal report, if there was failed operations. And we've got all green check marks, so it looks like everything's running okay from our summary standpoint. But then again, for the Exchange server monitoring, we've got the details option as well. So we can select that, and again, we can select the different Enterprise Vault servers that are running Exchange tasks, and it gives us a status of a variety of different settings for the journal mailbox. Also, you can see that we have archiving statistics for the journal archive as well. So if we go back up to the top of the window here, and now we'll go through and look at the different things that can be set up or configured to provide us with information about our environment. So if I go to the configuration, I have 4 different tabs. I have my performance counters, my Exchange parameters, my domino parameters, and my monitoring parameters. For the performance counters, you can go through and set up the different thresholds for both the warning and for your critical values. And again, you're not going to go through and talk about every one of these, but you can see that, like for example, we had our warning for our percent processor time was set at 50, and we had been running at 53, so that's why we'd gotten that warning in our monitoring environment. Also notice that you do have the option, if you have made a change, you can reset them to their default values. That's available. So we'll go back up to our top and look at what's monitored or what can be configured for the exchange parameters. And again, you can see things such as archive pending items, days since last backup, the number of items that have to fail the distribution list expansion before I get the warning or the critical item there. And again, here's a list of all the different exchange parameters that you can configure. Then if we go back to our top list here and switch over for Domino, if you do have a Domino environment, again, this is an exchange class, so we really won't spend a whole lot of time on it, but this is the Domino German link parameters that are available. And then we have the monitor parameters as far as how often the items are monitored and how long the database is going to keep that information. So in our particular example here, just to show you to change things, let's say that you don't like the 15 minutes monitoring and you'd like to do it more often. So I can open up the drop down here, and you can see that you can configure the monitoring frequency anywhere from 10 up to 60 minutes. And in our example, we want it to be a little bit more frequent, so we'll select 10, and then we can go ahead and click our Save button. And then it prompts us to save our configuration. We go ahead and say OK. And now we've looked at basically all the different things that you can see and monitor through the Enterprise Vault Operations Manager web interface. And that brings us to the end of this demonstration.